All right. Let's go on to the main event of UFC Fight Night. Volkov versus Rozenstruik with these two marquee names, Alexander Volkov and Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rozenstruik. So, of course, Volk, 34-10 as a pro with 22 knockouts on his record. He's coming off of a submission loss to Tom Aspinall back in March. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, 12-3 as a pro with 11 knockouts to his record. He is also coming off of a loss against Curtis Blades by unanimous decision back in September. Omar, let me start with you. The big boys are headlining this fight night. What's your take?
Okay, so I would have to imagine that Volkov is still the more technically sound fighter in this matchup. And I would still have to imagine that what you would have thought would have happened between him and Derek Lewis, where he was, be able to pick him apart and, work off of his jab, use his movement, lateral movement and things like that, stay away from the right hand, any crazy overhands. I feel like all that still applies for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Mm-hmm. I feel like losing to Derek Lewis is probably the best preparation that he's going to have to beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik. If he loses this fight, Volkov is probably going to be like the biggest asshole ever. This seems like Volkov's fight to win. It's tailor-made for him to win. Stylistically, I think it works for him. Rozenstruik, I think, is the one who's going to have to work, I think, a little bit more to find that shot. I don't think anywhere in the cards is Rozenstruik winning a unanimous decision of any kind against Volkov. And so if you look at it in that sense, Volkov's only path to victory, if I thought he knew how to do a submission, I would say submission. But his only path to victory is going to be knocking out Volkov. Mm-hmm. And I just think Volkov is way too tall, way too lengthy, and way too technical with that length to allow that to happen. So I'm going to go with Volkov by unanimous decision.
Okay. Mark, give us your take on this heavyweight clash.
So Volkov slightly favored here, -160. Rozenstruik is +130. This is one of those main events where you get like two big-name top 10 guys, and the winner is obviously going to be right in the mix, but the loser is suddenly going to have lost 3 out of 4. So the stakes are very high for these guys. The loser's not going to be in a great spot. Granted, their losses are all to like the top guys in the division. These are still top guys. But when you're in the title chase, you don't want to be losing 3 out of 4. So this is a big one. They have both had some nice performances interchanged with the losses lately. I thought Volkov's win over Overeem last year was really impressive, and same with Walt Harris before that. For Rozenstruik, I thought his last win over Augusto Sakai was maybe the best Rozenstruik we've seen in terms of a complete performance. It's just a matter of which guy's going to be able to deliver in a big spot on Saturday, because they're both certainly capable. But to Omar's point, however it shakes out, I think we will probably see Alexander Volkov winning the majority of the fight. He's the more dynamic fighter. He's the more well-rounded fighter. He's better at winning rounds, period. I think the decision you have to make in picking it is just whether or not you think Rozenstruik can land a kill shot and put Volkov's lights out, because he's likely not going to be winning these rounds. And if he can, I think Volkov mostly works his game and maybe even finishes him in his own way late in that fight as Rozenstruik tires. Yeah. But I'm going to trust Volkov here. His losses, other than Derek Lewis, are all to guys that had like a true advantage over him somewhere in the fight. And Rozenstruik doesn't have that. He's going to have to find Volkov's chin. And he can be a sniper at times. He's shown it. But Volkov has handled range really well lately. And other than that one slip-up against Derek Lewis, he's not a guy who's easy to hurt standing. Like, it's kind of easy to forget how tough Volkov is. Like, no one really hurts Volkov other than that one Lewis fight. He's got a great chin. On the ground, different story, but not standing. So while Rozenstruik obviously is capable, I will roll with Volkov here. I think that he even has a grappling advantage if he ever needed to take it there, if he was getting cracked. But I do think it plays out largely on the feet. I think Volkov will look to the body. I think the front kicks are a factor, maybe even short punches in tight or in the clinch. And I think he starts to wear Rozenstruik down and wins a clear decision.
Wow. You're more convicted than I thought you'd be. I am very conflicted on this fight.
I'm not a Rozenstruik guy, so that probably plays into it. But
Neither am I. I'm not as sold on him as I think a lot of other people are.
Tell me again what the odds are.
Tight. Volkov minus 160, Rozenstruik plus 130.
Why aren't you, Omar? Why are you not a Rozenstruik guy either?
I don't know. I just I think that at one point I felt the same way about Derek Lewis in just the sense that he was very sloppy. There wasn't a ton of like technique behind a lot of what he was doing. He was just the guy that knocked people out. And at heavyweight, I feel like that can happen a lot. That's not something that we generally see at lower weight classes. You have a little bit more leeway at the heavier weight classes. But I also think with Derek Lewis specifically, he had a lot of charisma behind him that just sort of made me love him anyway. Like I just didn't care anymore. And I don't think Jairzinho has that. And like, so I only focus on how he fights from a technical aspect. And he goes in there and if he catches somebody, he catches somebody. But for the most part, if the guy is better than him, there's not really an answer that he has other than just winging and hoping for the best. And I think most people, especially once you start getting to the tippity top of the heavyweight division, I think most people are going to be better than him. And Volkov is one of those guys.
I mean, Rozenstruik is supposed to be this credentialed kickboxer, though.
I mean,
Mark, you were going to say
But
something?
he doesn't in his last fight he struck more against Sakai. But normally he just waits and waits and waits, and I that's what frustrates me.
He wants the one hit. He just wants the one hit.
Agree. I feel like he is a perfect like top 10 heavyweight gatekeeper. The only thing that obviously bucked that trend is when he finished Alistair Overeem, which is a hell of a feather in anybody's cap. But he was losing every second of the entire fight until that KO in the 5th round.
It's true.
So I'm just not. Again, I said this even while I picked Volkov. Of course, Rozenstruik can catch him. The same way I just described about him catching Overeem. It can happen. I can't pick it.
Yeah.
Man, you guys, you're both influencing me, and now I want to pick Volkov. I was going to pick Rozenstruik. But you know what? To keep it interesting, I'm going to pick Rozenstruik. I think Volk's got a lot of miles on that body. He's got a lot of fights on his record. And I think the law of averages is going to catch up. To your point, Mark, he's only really been hurt by Lewis, but Rozenstruik is another guy at the top of this heavyweight division that's got a ton of power in those hands. And I think he's going to have to catch him. He's going to catch Volk, but he only has to catch him once. He's going to hurt him, and I think he's going to finish him. I'll say this is going to go down in the 1st round. Let's go.
Wow.
No way. No